Good morning, everybody. Were you in the keynote? Raise your hand if you were in the keynote. All of you? Any of you woke up late and missed the keynote? Raise your hand. A couple of you. That's not too bad. Okay. Look, today's a session about adoption, driving adoption in Microsoft Fabric. And actually, if you remove Microsoft Fabric and put Power BI or put any technology name in this presentation, you will find that many of the recommendations, they are still relevant for what you're trying to achieve. Because the reality is that driving adoption of any technology is quite similar. So you can try to develop an app, and driving the adoption of that app is going to be a lot of effort that we are not usually trained for, or we don't factor in as part of the budget. In the past few years, look, I've been working in consulting for 12 years, always in the data space. That's the only thing that I know. I haven't seen many organizations mature enough to justify the investment that they make in technology, or in data warehousing, or data analytics projects. So let me start with a question for you. Who has a data analytics environment in their organization? Can you raise your hand, please? Most of you. OK. How many of you know how much is invested in the platform and how much is invested in the people side of things? Raise your hand. OK. And how many of you know how many people are using the platforms, those data analytics platforms? How many users? How many people look at the reports? Any of you know the numbers? Nice. Cool. So this session is about that. It's about trying to give you a few hints, a few tips on how to drive adoption, specifically in Microsoft Fabric. But you can take these tips to any other technology. And it's really important. As our industry matures, you'll find that the budget on how we justify the investment and the budget and prepare budgets for data projects is going to become more strict. Right now, we put a finger in there and we say that we need, for the next financial year, $1 million, right? But we don't really know, actually, what the value that we're going to provide to the organization with that $1 million. And that's where we want to get in a few years. Hopefully by then, when this industry matures enough and we're able to justify those investments, all of us will retire, and we don't have to be worried about it. But we need to work towards it. So based in Brisbane, Australia, you can note my accent definitely is not Australian. I'm Argentinian originally. I'm Italian as well. So there you have it. Italian, Argentinian, and Australian. Yeah. I don't speak in Italian, so don't come to me for tips. The agenda for today. Look, we're going to look at the framework. So I'm going to give you a few KPIs that you can use to measure the adoption of the platform. I'll give you a framework to group those different KPIs and metrics, but then we'll go straight to give you 19 recommendations on how to drive adoption of Microsoft Fabric. The goal for today is for you to at least to walk away with a few things that you can think of implementing in your organization tomorrow. Or maybe you can have a chat with your colleagues or have a chat with your manager and try to work towards enabling some of those hints and tips and starting to capture some of those KPIs that are going to allow you to become a better and more mature data organization. The framework for grouping these KPIs is a framework that is well known. It's a PPT framework. Right? So you look at the people side of things, you look at the processes and the technology side of things, but you also have to look at the governance and strategy point of view, how you're going to do things. I like this because it's something that all of us, we can relate to. It's not very complex. So if you've been working in the data industry, you'll find the subject quite familiar and easy to understand, which is good. If you have any questions as we go, raise your hand or jump in whenever you want. All right, so in mind, we want to measure adoption of Microsoft Fabric. So we need a set of KPIs that we're going to capture. When it comes to KPIs, start small. Start to capture KPIs or information about KPIs that are really easy to capture. Some of them are really hard, or difficult to capture. In an ideal scenario, you want to work towards having all those KPIs in the dashboard. In real world, you might start with, you have a chat with your manager or with your sponsor, and you say, okay, look, I have this list of 100 KPIs to measure adoption. Can you choose 10? And out of those 10, can you prioritize them? And then out of those prioritization, you can decide, okay, look, this priority one is, I understand it, but it's too difficult. It's going to take us 8 weeks to capture that KPI, so it's not going to happen. So then you move to 2. So what I'm trying to say, out of that list of 10 KPIs, you're going to work with the ones that are really easy to capture initially. So let's go and look at the governance and strategy KPIs and metrics. Most of them are about money. So actual versus budgets, financial year, right? So really easy. What's the budget? How much money we're spending? So CapEx, OpEx. Really easy information to gather. It is usually in the accounting system. Nobody is going to disagree on you trying to seek for that information to justify investment of the platform. Licenses versus budgets, cost per report or interface. Decisions made by C-suite, leadership, board members, and management. Really difficult. So that one, how are you going to capture that one, for example, right? So you have to have a framework, a process involved as part of those C-suite, the meetings, where they can highlight or provide feedback. That they say, look, this report that you built helped us make this decision that had this impact in the business. Some of these are difficult to capture: cost per decision, initiative progress, number of developers, net promoter score, internal and external, right? So why? Because how you provide services and the customer experience might be affected by how you store, manage all the customer information, right? How many of you are working in, I'll put it this way, how many of you have a single customer view or a master data management or something like that for customer? Any of you have something like that? How many of you are working towards having a single customer view? Okay, why? Because the information is scattered across multiple systems. Every time that a vendor comes to have a chat with management, we get a new software, the latest, the shiniest, and things like that. And it becomes really difficult, right, to have all that customer information together. And that affects the customer experience. How many of you have more than one account in, let's say, more than one Gmail account? How many of you? Okay, how many of you have more than 2 Gmail accounts? Cool, see? So in regards to Google trying to understand how many customers they have, maybe they don't use customer as the entity, maybe they use number of accounts, right? But if it's the same person with 3 different accounts, so I imagine that they want to know why, so they can provide a better customer experience, because they can build a better experience for us. They can tailor marketing and services to us, right? And it becomes challenging for them. How many of you are measuring data quality errors in your organization? Okay. How many of you have duplicate records in your organization? A lot of you. How many of you have budget to solve the data quality problems? Okay. Number of hands keeps dropping. Okay. And if you don't know how many data quality errors you have, it's because you're not measuring it. And you have, any organization have data quality errors. People side things, look, when you look at usage, number of users, returning users, working with an organization right now for 3 years, and when they set up their data native platform, framework, PIM-PAM, amazing framework, whatever, they have the name similar. Let's put it with the increase of number of users has been really slowed during the past 2 years. It's going up, right? But very important for you to understand why that number is going up or down. So you want to know how many users are using your platform, Because if you're building just reports for the sake of building reports, eventually that's going to finish. So you want to imagine that if you, for each report that we build, we had 10 new users. We have everybody using the reports and the data analytics platform, right? How many of you have more than 10 reports in the organization? Right. How many of you have more than 30 reports? How many of you have more than 50 reports? Okay, 50 times 10, 500 users, right? I hope you have 500 active users creating the reports every month, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. Many of us, we are allocated to build reports, to build a solution, but we're not allocated with the time to engage with the users to use our products. We usually finish a project, we build a report, here's the report, amazing. Sign off, please. You move on to the next report, right? There's not like, hey, look, let's see, we'll have a meeting in 1 week, and in 2 months we got your feedback, and we go and we apply changes. So you use it, right? That's the end goal of user reports. Processes. Again, I haven't seen many organizations with processes written. All organizations have processes. What happens is that many times it's not written. All of us were following a process, even for coming to this venue, right? So we went up the stairs, we did the check-in, pass control, got to enjoy the conference, right? So the people organizing the conference, they thought about that. Is it written or not? Makes a big difference, especially with the high employee turnover that we have in our industry. How many of you have changed jobs in the past 2 years? That's it. So that's how it is, right? So we change jobs every so often, 2 or 3 years. What happens when we move to a new role? Are we allocated 1 month of handover to a new employee? No. You know, we think about this amazing scenario, you know, the next 2 or 3 weeks I'm going to work on handing over all my knowledge to the organization, and then we're just busy finishing the stuff that we were working on, and we don't hand over anything. That's what happens. If we had everything written, that would be so much better. From a technology side, you know, easy ones, you know, how many data sources you're working on, number of reports, views per report, number of workspaces, data quality issues. There are so many that you can start working with. I'll give you, at the end of the presentation, I think there is a summary coming up on where the information is, but I think it's the next slide. But they have a few KPIs for technology. How do you capture the data is the next question. When you go to Power BI, they give you some report usage, and they have even a new report, and you can see how many users are looking at the reports and all the things, and there is a new version, which is amazing. What's the problem with those reports? They are technical reports. Those reports, they are for us, okay? You take any of those reports to management, and they're going to say, I don't understand half of the concepts, right? Let me bring it. So this is the new experience, right? Feature, usage, and adoption of Fabric. Oh, wait for me a sec, right? And I know I have one more option here for screen, right? So when you look at this, you know, this is nice. This is good. For who? For us, technical people. You take this to management, you take this to leadership, and they will look at you and say, oh, okay, yeah. Most active capacities, yeah. They don't get it. So this is the problem that we have with this report. So it's too technical, and you cannot combine this with other information, which is another big mistake, right? Another big challenge of only using this. The other one that we have is, let me pick up maybe, be nice. Let me go to, look. View usage metrics reports. This is the other option that you have to look at some of those metrics. This is a good starting point if you were starting from a blank canvas that you didn't have anything, and you wanted to make this available in your data analytics team. I highly suggest, actually, everybody that I work with, I tell them, look, embed this in Teams and look at it. So do you have an agile, do you have a sprints every 2 weeks? Spend 2 minutes having a look. Do you have more users, less users? When was the last time? You just build the reports. Are they really using it? How many of you are using the report usage metrics when you build something? A few of you. It's the first thing that I do. I go, deliver a report. The day after, I'm just looking at this. And then I go back to them, hey, you haven't been using the report during the past 2 or 3 days. What's happening? You know, do you want me to change anything? Again, the challenge with this is that you don't combine this information with other reports, with other data sources. And we look at that. So this is nice. This is just me creating my timesheets and so on. But see, this is nice for looking at the specific reports but from an enterprise point of view, it's not enough. So how do I suggest you to do this? So first of all, look at all those metrics, look at where the information is being stored. A lot of the information that we look at before it is actually in the Office 365 logs. Some of that information is going to be in your payroll system, accounting system. And those systems, I'm sure you're already working with them. If you have a data warehouse, it's likely that you're already working with those systems. It's about surfacing that information with the other information and making sense of it. And I'd really suggest go and get those logs, build an ETL process, ELT, wherever, use Synapse, extract the information from the logs, put it in a repository as it was a data warehouse, because that way you're going to start capturing historical information. Do you want to use Fabric? Go and use Fabric. Do you want to use a different product? Go and use it, but you want to start capturing the snapshot on a weekly basis or on a daily basis on how your adoption is performing. I've been doing this for, I don't know, 3 years or so. It works great. It's so beautiful when you start seeing the trend lines going up or down, you know, and you combine with other data sources. And you know actually how much, even the one metric that I like a lot is the cost per, like a knowledgeable user. So put it this way, how much does it cost to enable a person to look at the reports, right? So for each person that looks at the report, and then you have the cost of the platform and the resources, CapEx, OpEx. So you divide the number of users against the total cost of the platform and the HR side of things, and you get a number. And that's a metric, that KPI you can work with. And when you go to management, you know, you start working with a KPI. So you want that number to go down. Now, we're going to look at other things, but they have a few KPIs to start with. And now, how do you drive adoption of Microsoft Fabric or Power BI? 19 recommendations. Why 19? Because I couldn't come up with 20. I think I came up with 25, and then I simplified to 19. I couldn't go down from 19 for the time being. The first one is having a strategy. It is so important. Any of you know the strategy of your organization? The business strategy. Do you know what your business is trying to achieve in the upcoming year or 2 years? Raise your hand, please. Cool. Nice. That's so important. Whatever you do has to contribute to that business strategy. And if it doesn't contribute to that business strategy, it's because it has been approved. And it's a tactical solution or it's required ASAP for solving a problem. You have to understand as well, you have to go and define how you're going to roll out this. We usually go and we say, yes, we get a vendor, will say, hey, we want to roll out Power BI. And they come and say, yeah, this is what you need to do, whatever, whatever. Here's the first report. And then they go away, and there you are with like a new platform, you know, you don't know where to start from. So having a plan to rolling out any application is extremely important. I've seen two ways of rolling out new applications. The organizations that they have a roadmap, they go and have something bespoke, you know, how they're going to roll out Power BI and what are the features that they're going to use and so on. And the organizations that they roll out an application because they have to. It happened a few years ago when they decommissioned, for example, Skype for Business. And everybody had to move to Teams, right? I've seen many organizations say, okay, tomorrow you go here and you use Teams instead of Skype for Business. What happens with those organizations? That the user experience is horrible. You know, imagine showing up for work, and they tell you, you know what? Power BI is gone. Now use Tableau. You know, it's a horrible user experience. And then what happens? So 2 years down the track, they wonder why the user experience is so poor, and they start building a roadmap to enabling the adoption of that tool. So having a roadmap is really important. Think about, take it easy, because you're not going to be allocated a lot of time for doing this, but you want to communicate this to management. You want to tell, you want to, how to say, you want to teach them on how to roll out a tool properly. We're advisors. I used to think that the managers, they know everything. I used to think that way. A few years back, I used to think, no, my manager, they should know everything. I shouldn't go there and giving them a suggestion. It's the whole opposite. Okay, we are there to give them suggestions, recommendations. It's up to them to take them or not. Okay, and if they don't take them, that's fine. You come back with a different approach in a few months and communicate the same thing, but different. The second one is identifying your ideal customer. If you're building a report for the CEO, who is going to look at the report potentially every month or every quarter, it's not the same as building a report for the operational employees or our frontline workers. You know, it's not going to be the same. So a frontline worker might look at the report every day, every hour. Imagine a retail store manager. They'll be looking at the reports every day. Or imagine the CEO of that retail organization. They'll be looking at the report potentially at the board meetings or before the board meetings. They'll keep an eye on it, right? But it's not, they're not going to be open the report every hour and so on. The same happens with managers. So you have to understand. I would say, look, there is the reports for the C-suite leadership. There is the reports for management. And then there is reports for operational people. So I think those 3 tiers are the most common tiers that I've seen. So the reports that look extremely different between them, can you roll them up? Yes, but it's as hard as building them separately. That's the reality. So you don't want to really combine. Even if you say, if you have all the information in a semantic model, and you could say, let's roll up the information into a KPI, it's not recommended for you to have that piece of information in the same report. It's just different. The next one is that the users are always right. I've seen so many peers complaining about a specific user and the lack of technical skills, or because the user is complaining, or because they change the requirements, or there is a scope creep. It's our fault. That's a reality. If there is a scope creep, it's because we didn't sign off on a specific requirement, so it's not written. If they don't have the technical skills, it's because we didn't provide the training required to use the platform. So you have to be empathetic with them. You have users that they are IT savvy, and you have users that they haven't touched, when they get home, they don't have a laptop. They don't touch a laptop. So you have to factor in that you're going to run into different challenges and different types of people. All of us were different, we're going to operate and work differently, and our needs are going to be different, right? So you have to factor in that whatever they say, take it home, think of it. After thinking of it, if you believe that they are not right, that's fine. Think, how can I avoid this happening again? That's all. That will make you a better professional. Hang out where your customers are. You know, we always, as IT professionals, we always think of everybody will understand what a Power BI report is. Everybody should be able to drag and drop this field into the blank canvas and a visual will appear. That's not the reality. So I've worked with aged care providers that they're not IT people. You have to understand, go there, see how they operate, because they are going to be the users of the platform. And if you're not able to change their behavior, they're not going to be using the platform. And many times, they don't even have time to go and look at the reports. Many cases, what's happening is manager says that their employees, they need a report or a solution. They come to you, you put it in the backlog, you start working through it, you deliver the solution, have a meeting, a few meetings with them, gather requirements, gather feedback and so on. But then 2 weeks after, they're not using the report. And you think, no, but I did everything right. I had the communication, we had the meetings, provided the training. I've done everything, but they're not using the reports. And what I found out is that they are not using the reports is because they are still stuck on their previous behaviors. They keep doing the same things. When they show up to work, they don't have time time allocated to go and use the application. So you have to go and have those conversations with management on how you can create a channel or giving them the flexibility to use the tool. Define a success criteria and KPIs for adoption. I think we covered quite well that one. It's not only about the KPI, but it's also as well what's your target. You can make it up initially, okay? You can say, for the next financial year, we want the number of users of the platform to grow by 5%. And 5% is a number that you're making up, right? But as you use the number, the next financial year, based on the previous year, you'll know better. You'll know what's feasible and what's not feasible. But if you don't start with a number, you don't know if you are performing well or bad. That's where the concept of SMART goals, go and have a look at it. They have to be SMART, means specific, measurable, achievable, relative, and time-bound. So that's what a goal has to be. So when you're defining KPIs, go and put something that says, next financial year increase 5%. And that will help you present that information to management, C-suite. You're going up, you're going down, where far, and why. Prepare to receive feedback. Use whatever works for your users. I've seen, for some users, they have to have meetings to give you feedback. And depending on the culture as well. If you go and try to receive feedback in Argentina, everybody will yell at you with their feedback. No, we want this, but we want that. We wanted that, but no, but you did this. Now you go to Australia, and everybody's more polite. Some of them, they will tell, no, it's fine. But if you tell them, look, I'll give you can write me an email to give me the feedback. Then they'll send you an email with the feedback. Some of them, they have to have meetings, and one-on-one meetings. I'm not talking about group meetings. Sometimes you have to have a one-on-one with a specific user to really trying to master what they're not using the report and what they need. Otherwise, you can go and create a Power BI, a Microsoft form to receive feedback. This will cover, think about this. You want to create a solution to receive feedback that covers 80% of the users. But that doesn't mean that the other 20% you're going to leave it aside, okay? That 20% will be 80% of the work for receiving feedback, and you have to find ways to gather that feedback. Creating a data community, this is great. Go and create a a place where people can share solutions, tips, hints, even if it's joined by a few people. I've done this a few times by creating different Teams channels. And what I've seen with this, I used to get upset because I used to say, oh, look, HR is doing great and marketing is not doing great, but then sales, they don't even write anything in the Teams channels because they're different professionals, right? So marketing and HR, they're quite data savvy, right? Salespeople, they have to do other things than looking at your shiny and pretty reports and sharing tips about Power BI in there, right? But that doesn't mean that you want to provide a framework for them to meet. Decentralized reporting is what needs to happen. This is, you've heard about data mesh, about shadow IT, and all those concepts. What we've shown during the past few years is that we are the bottleneck. We are the bottleneck. Our queues, our to-do list keeps growing. We need to build more pipelines. We need to move more information. We need to integrate more systems. We need to build more reports. That's not going to, that keeps growing. So we're the bottleneck. So what you want to get is to basically starting to enable different business areas to start contributing to your data analytics platform. Maybe you provide Power BI training to them, and then you give them access to the semantic model so they can start building the reports. Once that they build the reports, they come back to you so you can review them, put your stamp, and make them enterprise ready. But decentralized reporting, everybody wants to achieve this now. I don't know, 10 years back, it was different. It was, no, we have everything is done by the IT department. There are not enough data professionals for doing a centralized approach anymore. There is not enough budget for doing a centralized approach anymore. And there are so many of your peers in other business areas, they are so data savvy. Every time I work with marketing people or HR people, they get it. They say, yeah, I get it. And after a little bit of training, they start building the Power BI reports. It's great. That's where you want to move. That will drive your numbers up. That will help you identify your Power BI or data analytics champions. That will help you identify who are going to be those individuals who are going to spread the word across their teams. And you want to engage them. You want to bring them on board. Yeah, that's you can go, centralized approach, having a hybrid, or business that self-service BI like a shadow IT will be a little bit like this. In the middle is good. You've seen shadow IT, right? Where HR goes to market to hire a Power BI developer because we are unable to go and fit their needs. Because their needs, they've been scheduled for 2028 is when we're going to build a solution for them. Business glossary and report catalog. You can go use Purview. You can use a SharePoint list to start capturing those business glossary terms, to start capturing the number of reports. You can do this as easy as a SharePoint list. That's how long it takes. If you want to go and roll out Purview, that's rolling out a new technology. So there are many things that you have to factor in. I can go and spin up Purview for you. I go there and say, click, 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 Purview. Here's the bill, right? Rolling out Purview is something that you have to factor in, like rolling out Microsoft Fabric. There are so many things that you have to factor in. Sometimes it's better to have your report catalog and business glossary in a SharePoint list. Start that way. Having those business glossary terms approved by management is the end goal. That's where you want to move towards to. And it's going to take a few years for you to get there. High standards from the get-go. Try to do as many things in this list as you can, put it that way. So if you skip one, be aware that you're skipping one. That's fine. I'm not saying do everything. Ideally, do everything from the get-go. Be the best that you can be. And if you stop doing one of these things here in the list, at least make it an informed decision. If you're not going to write documentation, think of the consequences of not writing the documentation. You might have a chat with your team and say, hey, look, I haven't written documentation for this solution, but we might visit this back in a couple of months. Make an informed decision and verbalize that informed decision with your colleagues. You want to make sure that your colleagues know, hey, we're not going to look at the look and feel for this report because we don't have time. So what are the consequences? Poor user experience, poor user adoption. Are we happy with that? Yes, okay, we'll move ahead. You have made an informed decision. You know the consequences, and you come back. Prepare to manage technical debt. So if you've done that, and you have communicated that to your team, go and create an item in your to-do list. Start grouping them. Who is using some sort of a backlog for their activities? Raise your hand, backlogs? Yep. Easy, right? So you put it there, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. This is so useful. You don't know, because then when you're having a chat with your manager in 6 months, or your manager is having a chat with their manager, asking for budgets, and they come with this list of 100 things that they have created that are technical debt, they might be able to get some time to do them, or budget. Because you want to go up and communicate them, hey, look, there are 100 items that we have created that are technical debt. Really easy to capture. Define how you're going to operate. So when it comes to communications, how are you going to communicate up and down and sideways, right? With up, I mean, you want to get some of those KPIs that we talked about to the C-level, and you have to work through it. Maybe say you want to let the C-suite know what the adoption of the platform is and what the cost is, and so on. You want to make them aware. If you have to, so this one from here, right? So you want to have communications with, if you have a data governance team or a security team, so you want to have quarterly meetings with them. You want to communicate with them on what your progress is, what you're trying to achieve, what are some of the challenges. You're going to find in many cases that the thing that you're going to the thing that you're trying to achieve, sometimes they overlap. But because they are in different teams, we don't know. We don't have visibility of the things. Operating model is really useful, especially with handling things, not only progress, adoption, but also risk. Who is going to be accountable for creating that technical debt? Because if we create technical debt, this is an example, okay? If we create technical debt, it's not because we want, it's because we got to a position where we had to make a decision that we had to create technical debt. Therefore, maybe on every 3 months, we communicate up on how many technical debt we have created and why. And what's our recommendation? That's the most important thing, okay? For anything communicating up, it's not only, this is my problem, and this is why this is my problem. It's like, this is my problem, this is my proposed solution. So you want to always go to them. Go to leadership with the problem and what you suggest. And you get them buy-in most times. Bracing matrix is responsible, accountable, consulted, informed matrix. Is highlighting who is doing what. Who is going to create the workspaces? Who is going to be the admin of the Fabric tenant? Who is going to look at the pipelines? Who is going to create pipelines? Who is going to be responsible for the security of the information in Fabric? And so on. You can write it down, get it signed off. This one is really, really useful when it comes to creating the limitations between different responsibilities. the Vim many times where I had to bring this one up, when things go south, say, look, we haven't done that because you signed off on doing that. So this is you're responsible for this. There is a learning curve here, and you have to be flexible as well. It's not going to work from day one, but it's not going to work if you don't have anything. It'll take you, if you don't have something like this, it will take you, I think, a couple of years to get this enabled. You can write this in 1 week. You can agree on this with your peers in 1 month. It's going to take you a couple of years for everybody to enable those practices. It's all about increasing return of investment. Or the theme and reasons why we're doing what we do, okay, is increase revenue or profit. Increase revenue, decrease cost, the two things that drive up profit, or because there is a legal requirement. So whatever we do is closely related to that. So you want to find the links on why you're doing the things. Training and onboarding plan, it's a one-time off. It's a one-time off, time-consuming activity. So you go and create an onboarding plan for your team, or for your team on how you do things within your team, how you use Power BI. You create an onboarding plan for using Microsoft Fabric. It's a one-time off. So imagine joining an organization where they have an onboarding plan on how they operate. So you land there, first day of job, and they tell you, look, go through this onboarding plan. It will tell you how we operate. It's great. It's great. How many of you have joined an organization where they don't have anything written about their onboarding plan? A few of you. This is something that needs to have an internal user experience. When you join an organization or a team, they don't have an onboarding plan. They are setting you up for failure. Doesn't matter how many, if they go for coffees or lunch or dinner, that's great maybe from a cultural point of view. But if you don't know what you need to do when you start working at 9 a.m., that's a problem. You can use Teams, LinkedIn, so many options, whatever works for you. Keep up to date because whatever is the latest release might help you solve a problem that you had in the backlog. Sometimes you have to have a chat with SMEs and tell them, look, we won't do this now, even though this is a priority. We're going to wait 2 months because something's coming up. So you have to make them aware. You don't let them know, hey, look, the thing that we're going to be working with you is not going to happen. No, you tell them, hey, look, I think instead of spending 8 weeks on working on this, there's going to be a new feature, and we might get it done in 1 week. Do you think that we can wait? And they're going to say, yeah, I think that's reasonable. They will wait. Communication, including showcasing the success stories, right? So every SME, your C-suite, management, operational layer, all of them, they communicate differently. Not all of them, they use Teams. Some of them, they prefer a call. Some of them, they prefer an email. Some of them, you might have to query them in Teams, send them a message. All of them, they communicate differently. So don't make the assumption that because you like Teams, now we're going to communicate only in Teams. Maybe that's the target goal, 10 years down the track, okay? There are people who prefer emails. Who's using Teams right now in the organization? A lot. Do you still get a lot of emails in your inbox? A few of you, right? And you wonder why. Why? Just put it in Teams, create a channel, create a group, whatever. We'll get it. Don't send me emails. When you show up for work, you have 100 emails there waiting for you. It's like, that means that they are not ready to transition to Teams. Some of them, yes, you want to move them. Some of them, you might need to call your manager and tell them, hey, look, we have this problem. Many times, with something, the building on the other side of the street is collapsing, and we send an email to the manager. Hey, Tony, the building across the street is collapsing. No, pick up the phone. It's important. I've seen this, I'll tell you a scenario. So when I was working with these aged care providers, so imagine the demographic, right? So we're talking about people, not only the people using the services, but the people providing the services. Some of them, they are 50, 60 years old. Some of them, of that group, they're extremely data savvy, and they can take it. Some of them, they are just, hey, look, I'm going to retire in 3 years. I'm not going to use Teams, you know? And you have to understand it, even that they don't tell you that. You have to understand where they are at in their careers. Definitely architecture, don't use everything, please, you know? So go and select, cherry pick the thing that you're going to use from Fabric. Don't use everything. This is the problem with Fabric. Everything is available out there for us to use, right? Don't use everything. Try to minimize them. The less number of things you use, the high performance your team is going to be. How many of you are in teams of 20 in your team? More than 20? A few of you, only a couple of hands, okay? All of us, we're small teams. So when we start using data flows, semantic models, data marts, data warehouse, lakehouses, real-time analytics, data activator, the domains, what happens? We're too scattered, too thin. And that's, for our group, our existing group, maybe that's not a concern, right? We say, nah, we'll learn. You know, we're good. We're really good, high-performing team. We'll learn. 6 months after, one employee leaves. 18 months after, another employee leaves. What happens with the new team members? It's impossible for them to come up to speed with so many technologies. Try to choose and cherry-pick a few things. Even though sometimes it might look it's going to take longer to achieve a specific task. You might say, if we use notebooks, we get this done with Python in 1 week. If we do it with SQL, it's going to take us 2 weeks, right? It could happen. But if you have 95% of the code in SQL, you might need to go SQL. That's how it is. If you go Python, maybe you say, okay, now we're going to start having a higher percentage of Python solutions, and that's fine. And finally, monitoring with the KPIs that we showed you before. So they have 19 recommendations for driving the adoption of Microsoft Fabric. Remove Microsoft Fabric, put Purview in there, it will work. Put Power BI, it will work. Put Synapse, it will work. Put SharePoint, it will work. It's still relevant. So in summary, so you have a lot of pitfalls that you have to avoid and how to avoid them, from creating accountability, operating models, communication, management, having those KPIs, and so on. But if you go and do as many things as possible as I've shown you today, you're going to be in a better position. So of those 19 things, try to do as many as possible. And eventually, you'll get to do the 19. Start small. Start with 2 or 3, then 6 months after, introduce another 3 or 4, and that way you keep growing. And you're going to drive adoption up. Be patient. It doesn't matter what you do in the next 3 months. What matters is what the organization, how the organization is in 5 years or in 10 years. That's, for your organization to become a data-driven culture, it's going to take you 10 or 20 years. That's how long it takes. But if you don't put the foundations and set up the first milestones, they will never get there. So that's how important your role is on this, the bigger picture. So that's all from this presentation. Maybe I have a minute to go questions, if there are any. Yeah. Any questions? No questions? Crystal clear? Yep. Yeah. So the question is, if we enable our business users to build their own reports, how do we make sure that we have the right processes and governance to have a good look and feel, right? So the answer is that you want to have some sort of a managed risk, put it that way. So up front, you know that, I'll answer the question first. Really easy. You allow them to build their own reports, but that report doesn't get a stamp, which that is an enterprise report until it comes back to us and is improved by us. And it passes, look and feel, we do performance analysis, we do all the things. So we allow them to build the reports, it comes back to us, we put our stamp, that is an enterprise report. So that essentially means that when they're presenting that report at the meeting, they will know if that report is an enterprise-approved report or is a report built by them. So it'll be different. That's the easiest way to do it. But with those things, you want to have some sort of a managed risk. So it's like, if you allow them to build reports, you know that a few things could happen. The performance is bad, the look and feel is bad, and so on. So therefore, you can prepare for those things. So look and feel, you give them templates, and this happens. You tell them, hey, you can build your own reports. Here you have 5 templates. Choose whatever you want. And that way, they just drag and drop, create a few visuals. So you minimize how many problems you're going to have. Performance is covered in the semantic models, essentially. So if your semantic model is good, you're not going to have performance issues. And having a process, having the process is like really easy process, business mapping process. So, you build the reports, then you send it back to us, we approve it, and it's an enterprise report. Does it answer your question? Yeah. It's managed risk, which means a little bit of, you lose control, but you gain speed. It's a trade-off, right? That's what it is, yeah. Any other questions? Okay, it's time. Thank you for coming to this presentation.